Hello class, this is the first video. We're going to have another video tomorrow on making casein and milk protein. This is lab number 9. The word buttons needs to be in your title for your lab. You're going to be making casein and milk protein. There's a chemical formula for casein. Make sure you get that down because you may want to put that on your lab report. Okay, let me go through the rest of this. So you're going to be actually need to listen to stuff and get everything down. Okay, there I am. So the first thing you need about 150 milliliters of warm milk. You need a 200 milliliter beaker. You need about 3 ounces of white vinegar. You need some type of white utensil. I'm using a peel top to cut the button with. You need a paper plate. You need coffee filters. You need something to stir with. I've got a knife, a plastic knife, and I also have a regular spoon. And you need a bowl. And you also need some food coloring. This food coloring is not as good. I like the drops. The only thing I could find at a grocery store today was for pastry, cupcakes, or batter or something, I don't know. But anyway, we'll do what we can do. So the first thing you need to do is you take your milk. It needs to be warm. It doesn't have to be hot. And if it is hot, it's going to be a little bit too hot for you to use because it's going to be all in your hands. You're lucky because you don't have to smell it. You put about 150 milliliters in there. It doesn't have to be exact. This is not one of those labs that the volume has to be exact. The measurements have to be exact. So you got that there. See how hot it is? Okay, it's okay. It's cool enough that I can be able to do it. Then what you need to do is take your food coloring. Food coloring, if you do the regular type, you just have to put a couple of drops. But this is for, like I said, for icings and stuff. You have to put a whole lot in there. So I'm putting a whole lot in there. And then I'm going to stir it. Normally what you need to do is put maybe 2 or 3 drops total. That's all you'll need, and it'll get nice and nice good color. You can see it's turning blue. But if you have 3 drops, it'll be really nice and blue. And then as it dries out, it gets darker. It sort of looks green on the screen, but it's blue. So you've got it in there. You've got the food coloring. Make sure you put the food coloring in first. I do not want you to do these labs on your own at home. You may if you want. This is not dangerous. So you don't have to worry about it. It'll just smell like your kitchen a little bit with the vinegar and the milk, but it's not that bad of a smell. Now, if you have the whole classroom doing it, it would be smelly. The next thing you do is you take your milk, you dump your vinegar in there. And let's just stir it and see what happens. You might be able to see something already. It's starting to clump together. What you're doing is just taking the vinegar, the acids in the vinegar are reacting with the milk and taking out the actual proteins itself. Now you can kind of see that, right? Now I'm going to try and pour this as good as you can so that you can see it, but I don't want to mess up my computer, so I may not be able to do it as perfect as you want. Let me get a coffee filter here opened up with my hand. On a coffee filter, what you want to do is you want to make sure you're supporting that because you don't want it to spew out over the side because the juice is going to come out. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to save the solid part in the coffee filter and let the liquid part come out. So I'm going to do it way up here, but I'm trying not to make a mess on my computer desk. So I'm slowly pouring it in there. You see the clumps? See the clumps pulling? I have to wait for a second. Got some more of the clumps. This was just that 150 milliliters of milk we did. Look at all that clump stuff. You see that clump coming out? Ooh. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep on going, letting it filter through. The water is coming out. The fluid part's coming out. You're not worried about the fluid part. That's why I've got that bowl for. That bowl that I showed you is catching the fluid part. And this is when it kind of gets kind of nasty. What you're going to see in there is you're going to actually sort of looks like cottage cheese before you get started, mixed up with some water. But as you squeeze it out, it starts to look more like ricotta cheese or even mozzarella cheese. But now it's blue, so it doesn't have that cheese look anymore. So what I'm doing, I'm continually squeezing it. As you can see, got most of the fluid out. What you want to do is get as much of the fluid out as possible. Like I said, I'm trying not to make a mess on my floors or my hardwood floors in this room, so I don't want to mess them up. And my desk is not that big a deal. It's some kind of glass looking thing, but I don't want to mess. Keep smashing. Now that you've got most of the water out, you want to get as much of the moisture out as possible, because that way it'll dry better. If you don't have the moisture out, what's going to happen is it'll crack really bad. I didn't get enough of the moisture out. We're going to have other techniques you can take the moisture out. Now I'm going to dump that out. So you see what's in there. Dump it out. If I didn't have food coloring, of course it would be pure white. Well, it'll be an off-white. So you take this and you continue to squeeze it some more in your hand. And it's almost like pie dough if you make pie crust before you put the extra flour on it. So now you've got like a big piece that looks kind of like Play-Doh or something, or that. And like I said, you want to keep on squeezing, get as much moisture as you can out of it. Try not to drop it too much out of it though. What you're going to try and do, I'm going to try and get at least one good button, but in class I only have you do 2, but you'll get the idea with this. Now what you've got it done, then what you want to do is you kind of want to smash it. Flatten it out. Flatten it out like this. See how it's flattened? Oops. You don't want it to fall apart. So you might have to knead it a little bit. Then you actually flatten it out. I need to be flattening it some more, but on my hand, you see it flattened like this. Broke, but I'll fix it. Put that on the plate, and I'll show you that in a second, okay? Excuse me. Here you have it on the plate, and it's on some coffee filter just to help with the moisture. What you're trying to do is get as much moisture out as you can. Get a paper plate, a paper towel rather. Fold it. And that way you can swab it dry some more like this. Trying to get out as much moisture as you can. We're almost done here, believe it or not. And then you take a round, some kind of round. I'm using a top of a peel thing there. You just try to cut the shape of a button. You can use a cookie cutter or whatever you want as well. So you have the shape there. Then you want to put like buttonholes in there. I'm going to put 2 or 3. I'm using a pair of scissors. It's probably not the best thing to use. And what I'm going to do tomorrow when it gets partially dry, I'm going to remove the outside. I'm going to leave that intact for now. You see the outside the circle that we have. You see the 3 buttonholes. Okay, so that's what we'll be doing. When we come up back on the video tomorrow, when you start watching the video, it's going to be 3 days afterwards, and it's going to be dried. Tomorrow I'm going to remove the outer rim, this stuff right here. I'm going to remove that outside, so we just have that button so we can dry nice. And I'll also tap it a little bit more and try and dry it a little bit more. And then by Wednesday it should be done. And if we got enough moisture out, then it should not be too many cracks in there. Well, I hope everybody understood what we did on the video. Make sure you get the notes. If you have to rewind and watch the video 1 or 2 more times, and that's what we're going to be doing. So make sure you recognize that. That's part of the work. This will be your lab report. Will be your first assignment you have to submit to Google Classroom. I just want to show off. Here's my medal for the Marine Corps Marathon, 1995. Hasn't been that long ago. Well, maybe it has been. But anyway, it's nice having y'all. We'll talk to you later. And I hope everybody has a good, safe time at home. Do what they tell you to do. Take care.